Hello everyone, I'm back again with this week's episode of Safe House, chapter 25 by the Goddess Kim. So, I know I've said a lot about trying to do one-shots more casually, less just for subscriber specials. However, I have only gotten one request for a one-shot so far, and again, I really don't have that many already saved up options. Also, I'm really low on time, so and whenever I have time to record, I'm normally just trying to save up a whole bunch of Safe House because those are the main series and I have a schedule for those. I want them to go out every Sunday. So, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Really, sorry. The casual one-shots just going out every once in a while probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. I will still be doing them for I'll still be doing the one-shots for subscriber specials. At the time of this current recording, I'm really close to 400, so yay. So that that one shot is probably either already out or will be out really soon. So one shots will still be happening. They probably will only happen every 100 subscribers or so. Anyway, I hope this doesn't bother you guys too much, but anyway, Safe House chapter 25. 5 more chapters left after this one. Yay! I hope you guys enjoy. Following the hellhound through the streets of Chicago was harder than Nico had thought, especially because said hellhound was currently weaving between the cars on the street, not walking on the sidewalk like Nico, Will, and Akimi did. Sometimes Miss O'Leary would take an abrupt turn, and that left the three to wonder where she had gone. Akimi was grumbling something about big dogs from hell, and why doesn't she have a leash? Will was trying not to laugh at her expense, but was failing miserably. This resulted in Akimi punching him and them getting into an argument. By the time they had stopped shouting at each other, Miss O'Leary was long gone. "Great job!" Nico said to the two of them, who had the decency to look embarrassed. Akimi was looking up and down the streets they were on, but couldn't spot any gigantic dogs. Maybe because she was actually the same height as Nico and therefore not able to look over the other people's heads. This job was Will's, who was standing tiptoed trying to find the hellhound. "I can't find her," he announced after a while. Nico groaned. "Maybe you want to give it a try?" Will suggested with a smirk. "I could lift you on my shoulders." "Shut up, soulless!" Will snickered. "Not my fault you're so tiny." Nico glared at Will and stomped off towards another street. He hated it when people made fun of his size, especially when Will did that. It made it even more embarrassing, because he was his age, not the 3 years older like Jason or Raina. Then he could explain it with the age difference, but with Will it wasn't possible. He was startled from his thoughts when somebody nearly ran him over. Nico glared after the businessman, who just scrunched up his face in annoyance and kept talking on the phone. Nico looked around the street he was on and just realized how crowded it was. Everywhere were businessmen and women, people who were carrying bags from designer shops, and small families trying not to lose each other. In other words, it was loud, full, and everything Nico despised. Looking around him, he noticed that neither Will nor Akimi were in sight, leaving him to deal with all of this alone. He sighed and started walking again. It was probably best to find a side street that was less crowded, like the one they were on before, even if it had been full of people too. Suddenly a loud bark echoed through the streets, and Nico caught a glimpse of Miss O'Leary, on the other side of the road, sniffing at the edge of a tall building. Then she started running down the street, coming Nico's way, and racing past him. Instantly he turned around and went back the way he came from, pushing some unfortunate people out of the way. It was hard to cover any ground with people randomly standing in the way, others coming your way or pushing you to the side. He got slowed down too often and sometimes had to yell at people in front of him to move. There was there was no feeling worse than being stuck in a large crowd while you tried to be fast. It was like swimming in quicksand. Luckily Miss O'Leary rounded a corner, nearly causing an accident. The driver in the car leaned out and yelled at her. Nico was faced with a different problem. How was he going to get on the other side of the road, with all the people around him? It was a bad idea to shadow travel. He didn't want to know how they would react to a teenage boy suddenly dissolving into shadows. On the other hand, they were all too busy with their own stuff to pay attention to him. A red light in front of him solved his problem. Mrs. O'Leary came to a stop in front of a dark alley, a mile away from his earlier position. Nico was ready to collapse on the floor at this point. The hellhound sometimes lost track and ran into a completely different direction, just for her to turn around and race past him again. Other times she ran a full circle or took too long just to get to a street right next to the one before. Once she even jumped over a river and left Nico to search for a bridge before losing her for half an hour. Now it was nearing dark, and Nico hadn't seen nor heard from Will in 3 hours. There was there was one point where maybe an IM was shimmering in front of him, but he didn't find out 'cause somebody walked through it. "There you are, big girl," he muttered and patted Miss O'Leary on the head. She wagged her tail, slamming it in a building which resulted in a crash inside and somebody yelling. "Did you find Gina?" he asked, and looked around the alley. It was dark, but Nico, being the son of Hades, was able to see enough. Nobody was there, though. There were some people in the neighboring houses, but they weren't Gina. Nico had enough time with her to recognize her life signature. It could be that she was around here somewhere and the walls were messing with Nico's senses, which wasn't a comforting thought, but according to Miss O'Leary, Gina was truly in this area. At least Nico thought that was what her tail wagging and the happy face meant. Good job, girl. You can go play with Cerberus or something. The hellhound's eyes lit up at the mention of her friend, and she bounded into the next shadow. Nico smiled after her before facing the alley again. Here goes nothing. There was truly nothing of great importance in this alley except a couple of trash cans and a rolled up rope. Nico checked the trash. It could be, after all, that Gina was dead in there somewhere. He highly doubted it, though. First of all, he would have felt her die. Secondly, Gina was capable of surviving out on the streets for one day. And thirdly, monsters could only track living beings. What good would a dead demigod be to them? Like he predicted, there was no sign of Gina Spacey. He wandered further into the alley and found an old and battered metal door at the end. That was all. Nico could not feel a living being behind it, so he figured it was an abandoned building, a perfect hideout. The house was 4 stories tall, and Nico could only feel the life forces in a small radius, so maybe Gina was hiding on the upper floor. Nico shortly thought about contacting Will, but that wouldn't be necessary. He was perfectly able to protect himself and handle the situation. Opening the door was surprisingly easy. Not a good sign. The door swung open slowly, revealing an old empty room. The walls were only painted half in a dull brown color. An old wooden desk was toppled over, cobwebs all around it. A doorway led to what used to be the living room. The green couch was cut open, the filling strewn all over the room. It was kind of creepy, and if Gina truly was hiding here, she needed guts. Nico doubted even he could sleep peacefully in such an environment. Searching the ground floor led to his earlier diagnosis. No living being. The stairs were creaking, and Nico feared that they would give out under him. Halfway between the first and second floor, a big hole was in the middle of the stairs. A ripped piece of jean was hanging on one of the cracked wooden boards. He carefully stepped over it and entered the second floor. Like the previous two, it was empty of any life, leaving only the third floor and the last floor. When he slowly pushed the door to one of the 2 apartments open, he picked up a familiar life signature. Gina was here. He nearly ran towards the old bedroom, where a 4-poster bed stood. The door creaked loudly when it was pushed open, emitting a scream from the person inside. "Damn it, Gina, you can yell!" he exclaimed. Gina was half hiding behind the bed and was staring at him wide-eyed. Looking back on it, he shouldn't have crept up on her like that. "We used a hellhound to track you down," he explained. "Hellhound?" she shrieked, looking around wildly. "And who's we?" She's friendly and gone now, Nico said. And we is Akimi, Will, and I. And Paul to a certain extent. She blinked a couple times before stepping forward and slapping him in the face. Nico flinched at the stinging feeling in his left cheek. Wait, not even an ow? Gina muttered angrily and slapped him again. And a third time. The fuck, Gina? Nico explained. What are you doing? He was rubbing his left cheek, which had started burning. No doubt it was bright red now. I wanted to slap you and say, that's that's for me being on the run from the police, but you don't even react. It's like slapping a freaking brick wall, but because honestly your cheekbones kinda hurt, she whined. Then she let her head fall forwards, resting against Nico's shoulder, and started to cry. Nico went stiff at the sudden contact. After a few seconds, he awkwardly patted her on the back. You're not really good with people, are you? Gina asked, after she lifted her head again. Geez, how can you tell? Nico rolled his eyes. Before anyone could say any more, Gina was suddenly pulled away and shoved behind the body of somebody else. Nico was slammed against the wall and then held there. He couldn't see who or what was holding them. Then he realized it must be something invisible. The next thing he noticed was the people in front of him. They all had broad shoulders and were on first glance male. Other than that, they were the most diverse bunch he had ever seen. He'd never seen most of them before, and was therefore a bit surprised when they seemed so angry at him. The one standing in front of a surprised Gina, however, was a familiar face. Andy? He asked, confused. Andy scowled, and something hit Nico in the head. Everything turned black. Coming back to consciousness after being knocked out was never a good experience, but coming back while two people were yelling in the background was horrible. The light was too bright and his head was hurting like Hephaestus was hammering around in it with his hammer. The yelling was only helping increase his headache. He groaned and shut his eyes tightly, trying to block out everything. The yelling stopped and someone came running towards him. Nico, are you alive? Gina asked. Nico didn't respond. Oh, please don't be dead. That would break Will's heart, and he looks like a kicked puppy when he's sad. Nico blinked and gave her a disbelieving look. Did she really just say that? It would be sad too, because you'd be dead, of course, she hastily said. They awkwardly looked away. What's going on? Nico asked after a minute of silence he had used to get adjusted to the light. He looked around and noticed that he was laying on a bed from earlier. Most of the unknown men were gone, except for Andy, who was glaring at him from the other side of the room. He remembered something about him being a monster, but was too tired to care. Justin knocked you out, Gina explained. What? Nico asked. This didn't clear anything up, and Nico hated not knowing what was going on around him. Justin, one of the storm spirits who live here. They found me last night after someone, here she glared at Nico, left me to go home while I was a murder suspect. In my defense, we didn't know about that then, and you insisted to go home alone. Also, I'm sorry about what happened at the mall. Anyway, Andy said they thought you were going to kidnap me or something. Then they realized you were a demigod and decided to kill you. I kept them from doing that, so you're welcome. Gina helped Nico into a sitting position. He noticed that behind the barricaded window it was dark. He looked from there over to Gina, who was now actually sporting a concerned look. He frowned. Why are you with some monsters? He hissed. They aren't monsters, they helped me, Gina said. That doesn't mean they never killed anybody, Nico said. They hunt us down. You know that, right? That they are the reason why most of us don't live until adulthood. Gina looked shocked at that. But Akimi? Yeah, mostly. Some lucky people like Akimi's parents managed that, Nico grumbled. Okay, but Andy's never killed anybody. He told me that, Gina insisted. Nico glared at said monster. Doesn't mean I believe him. They promised not to kill you, she said. Nico gave her a disbelieving look. And you believe that? You can't trust monsters, okay? That's the biggest mistake you'll ever make. Gina frowned at Nico's angry tone. Sounds like you did make that mistake once. Nico flinched. She was right. He had trusted that stupid ghost Minos in the labyrinth and nearly paid with paid for it with his life. We will not harm you, son of Hades, a new voice said. We are sorry for this unfortunate meeting and hope you will enjoy your further stay. A slightly older-looking storm spirit had entered the room. He looked Asian and was wearing a suit. Of all things, a suit? And looked a bit confused in the background. Nico reached for his sword in the shadows and pulled it out. Sure, because monsters are known for their exquisite hospitality and goodwill. I swear it on the sticks if you promise to let us move on from the city, the Asian guy said. Nico's jaw nearly hit the ground, but he picked it up fast enough. That was unexpected. What is it? Gina asked quietly. He sticks, but what? Nico stammered, unable to form a working sentence. We don't mean harm to the people, and we try not to kill any demigods. As you may have noticed, our youngest go to school, and older work in high-ranking offices. We are part of all of this. He motioned around the room. Chicago is not called the Windy City for nothing, the man responded. Nico could only blink. They were willing to swear on the sticks not to harm him. He knew that they were monsters who were nice, like Mrs. O'Leary or Tyson, but he never thought he would actually encounter some. It was a shock to say the least. And the whole thing about including themselves into the society, he didn't know monsters were even smart enough to do that. He leaned over to Gina. You want to go now? He whispered. Where? I can't go home. I've watched TV. They raided my bedroom, Gina responded. We have a couch, Nico offered. Gina was thoughtful for a moment, then she nodded. She looked over at the Asian guy. Patrick, I'll go with Nico now. Thank you for your hospitality and helping me. Patrick nodded and smiled slightly. Of course, it is our duty to help people in need. Nico stood up and put his sword back on his belt. Gina picked up her jacket from the floor and put it on. Gina, are you crazy? You want to go with the demigods? They're dangerous! Andy suddenly shouted and stared at Gina like she had gone weird. Nico glared at him. Gina sighed. Don't worry, Andy. I know what I get myself into, she said. You should get back to school. Betty will probably miss you. But his eyes flickered to Nico. We won't be here next week, the son of Hades said. What, you won't? Gina looked at him surprised. You won't either. I'm not going to school while I'm a wanted criminal. We wanted to go back to camp anyway, and you're coming with us. That's the safest way, he exclaimed. She nodded thoughtfully. Okay, I'm tired. How far is the couch? She asked. She looked tired too, her eyelids drooping, and she was trying to hide her yawn. Nico wondered what time it was. He looked at Patrick. I hold you to that promise, he warned. Then he grabbed Gina's arms and pulled her into the shadows. That was Safe House, chapter 25 by the goddess Kim. Goodness, it's been so long since I started this series. But, yeah, wow, almost done. That's fun. I pretty much did my announcement thing about sorry about the one-shots not coming out. I did that at the start, so, yeah, just like so I know you enjoyed. Share to all of your Percy Jackson and Solangelo obsessed friends. Comment so that I can hear about how you enjoyed because I do read the comments and I do enjoy reading them. Also, comment one-shot suggestions because even if I don't have the time to do them, I'm still going to do them for like subscriber specials and yeah, I still need recommendations for those and just in general for when I do get the time. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe so you don't miss all of I don't know the stuff I'm gonna do in the future, all the other chapters after this. If you've been watching this series and you're just really enjoying it, then maybe consider subscribing because like this is all of my video content is these, and I have a whole bunch of Percy Jackson shorts that I think are pretty good. You could check them out. I personally think they're pretty good. I also have like just a few Wings of Fire and Keep of the Lost Cities in there too. So yeah, watch those, subscribe stuff, like, comment, subscribe. I already said share. So anyway, yeah. And once again, I have an insanely long outro, nearly two minutes at this point. Sorry about that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next week for chapter 26. Wow. Have a great day. Bye.